an ordinary young man who lived a quiet and measured life. However, one day his life turned into a real nightmare. In the evening, when Tom was walking home after work, he noticed a strange man who was watching him from the shadows. He decided to turn onto the street to check if he was being followed. But the person still stayed close, which increased the feeling of anxiety. Tom decided to speed up his pace, but when he turned the corner, he suddenly ran into a group of aggressive strangers. They attacked him, beating him and leaving him unconscious on the ground. He felt pain and fear, and his blood was flowing down his face. Tom was lying on the ground, his face scratched and disfigured with blood. The group of strangers continued to beat him mercilessly, and he felt that every blow took away his strength. Every time he tried to get up, his legs failed, and he remained defenseless before the cruelty of these people. They laughed ominously, enjoying the torment of their victim. Blood flowed in a stream, staining the asphalt in a bright red color. The sight was eerie and absolutely real. While they were beating him, Tom remembered his quiet life, which collapsed before his eyes. He did not understand why this was happening, and who these people were who wanted to harm him. When they finally left him unconscious on the ground, Tom felt that his body had become cold and he could hear the booming sound of his heart. He thought it was the end, that he was dying. Tom was lying unconscious on the asphalt, surrounded by blood and pain. While he was slowly recovering, he heard the voices of strangers who laughed viciously and continued to rape his victim. His mind was filled with feelings of powerlessness and fear. Opening his eyes weakly, Tom saw the strangers pulling out their weapons and preparing to hit him again. But suddenly, police sirens were heard in the distance. Something made the aggressors abandon Tom and try to escape. However, luck did not promise that salvation. He was too wounded and weakened to run away. Soon the police arrived at the crime scene and found Tom lying unconscious in a pool of blood. Tom was taken to the hospital, where doctors fought for his life. But the same stranger appeared there, while Tom was unconscious. The stranger took him away saying that he was his relative. Tom woke up in an abandoned house. His hands and feet were tied to an old wooden frame. The cold air of the house penetrated his pain-riddled bones, and absolute darkness surrounded him from all sides. Soon a mysterious stranger appeared in front of Tom. In his hands he held a needle and a small bottle with an unknown liquid. The lamplight accentuated his sinister features. "So, my dear Tom, you just shouldn't have been in that place at the wrong time," the stranger said with icy composure. "Now you will know what fear is real fear." Tom tried to pull away, but the ropes held him tight. The stranger slowly injected the liquid from the vial into Tom's vein, and he felt the fog time his consciousness. He slowly passed out, sinking into the darkness without consciousness. It was about 9 o'clock when Tom finally woke up. He found himself in a small walled-up room, in which there was only a barely noticeable light spot from a small window. His heart beat faster with horror and despair. Tom realized that he had fallen into the hands of an insane psychopath, and now he is trapped in his insidious plans. In the small walled-up room, Tom was seized with absolute horror. The cold air penetrated through his clothes, penetrating his bones. He could hardly continue. "Now it's time for your exploration of true fear," the stranger said, and his words sounded like a voice from hell. "No one will hear your screams here, and you will be my toy until your last breath." Tom tried to beg, begging for mercy, but his pleas were in vain. The stranger was relentless and ruthless. He took out a knife and began to strike, leaving deep cuts and wounds on Tom. The hours seemed endless, and the pain and suffering were unbearable. Tom felt his strength draining away and he was approaching the edge of insanity. But he didn't give up. A spark of hope for salvation burned in the depths of his soul. Darkness slowly engulfed his consciousness, and he felt that he was losing himself in this nightmare. He knew that he would have to face madness and cruelty to survive in this deadly game. Every moment became important, and Tom had to gather the last remnants of strength to fight for his life. But his opponent was cunning and insidious, and every time Tom tried to escape, his hope was destroyed. However, At the very moment of despair, Tom came up with an idea that could be his last chance for salvation. He began to think strategically, finding weaknesses in the behavior of his executioner. Tom realized that his only way out was to deceive his tormentor. He began to behave as if he had given up and lost all hope. This caused the stranger a sense of superiority, and he relaxed, descended to the level of the victim. Taking advantage of the moment of carelessness, Tom gathered all his strength and struck a quick and decisive blow to the stranger's most sensitive spot. He screamed in pain and fell to the floor, holding on to his wounded place. Tom rushed to the door, freed himself from his shackles, and ran out of the abandoned house, plunged into the darkness of the night. He ran without looking back, feeling that his life was hanging by a thread. At the moment when Tom ran out of the abandoned house, his heart was pounding so loudly that he was sure that a stranger could hear his every beat. The darkness swallowed him up, and he hid in the shadows, hoping to get away from his tormentor. Tom knew that he needed to act quickly to save himself. He understood that his life was now in greater danger than ever. He ran through the dark alleys without looking back, afraid to see the pursuer on his heels. Soon he came across the road and without hesitation, put his finger to a passing car, trying to get to the nearest settlement. The car stopped, and he climbed inside, telling the driver about the nightmarish story that had befallen him. The driver, being a decent person, decided to help Tom and offered to take him